So we continue with 838, and the question is, what about writing? Is it both useless and dangerous? Well, maybe that's a question that is not that easy to answer. We dwell constantly into what is writing and what does it do for us? What does it mean to us? And what is its purpose? How could we have anything without writing? We couldn't have a legal system, we couldn't have military structures, education, arts, we couldn't have record of population, and above all, it's a sort of knowledge we couldn't have had without writing. And it's actually something that is completely dependent on the situation where we do have writing. If you really look at it, it does actually look that instead of marginalization of writing, we are actually making it privilegized. I think that's a reasonable way of looking at it. You could say there are some arguments on the side. Sometimes speech is offered a curious privilege. For instance, in court of law, they rely on writing, but what do they privilege? Well, vocal testimony. I promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. We've heard that loads of times. Whereas an academic thesis is forbidden to cite oral statement as evidence. The last and ever more important is the viva voce, the court of the living voice. The argument on my thesis is something that you pronounce. Or how about a formal meeting at some business or some sort of syndicate or union? I call upon the secretary to read the minutes of the last meeting. Or I declare this church to be open and instigated hereby. But this is not what Derrida is pinpointing at this case. Oddly enough, rather it is that the history of phonocentrism is a history of silence. A repression of writing which can scarcely be acknowledged. Secondly, the suppression of writing is necessary to Western philosophy, and all thinking influenced by it. It is crucial to philosophers' metaphysical presupposition. Let's take a look into the relationship between logocentrism and metaphysics. Metaphysics inquires into aspects of reality which seem to lie beyond the empirical and its noble world, out of reach of scientific methods. Its questions look like the philosophical questions: essential truth, being and knowing, mind, presence, time and space, causation, free will, belief in God, and human immorality, etc. Are there actually such questions? I think that's good. Thinking that empiricists like David Hume and many positivists, scientific naturalists, skeptics, and others have said no. But the question persists. To set them up and answer them, Western metaphysics has looked for foundations, fundamentals, principles, or a notion of the center. These are the groundings for all of its inquiries and statements. This is the drive to the ground truth in a single ultimate point, an ultimate origin. Derrida calls this impulse logocentrism. The logos is taken as the undivided point, the origin. Metaphysics ascribes truth to the logos along with the origin of truth in general. Metaphysics, in its search for foundations, is logocentric. That is the real point. You cannot have truth if writing is not undermined, discarded, made a scapegoat, marginalized, and so forth. Because what is most and inner in the inside cannot be a sign, cannot be something that you can point to, see, feel, or what. Because inside there is the truth. I mean, that's a rather good and proven point. How are the foundations laid in Western metaphysics? Well, we start with binary oppositions, and we usually say that one is privileged, one is more important, and the second one is to be subordinated. And we set up a procedure where we always move from the first one, existence, and we tell what it is not. For instance, in Western world we have a very curious effect of thinking God and no God is very important. Whereas in India, for instance, Christians I came across in Christianity defy the idea of both God as existing or God as non-existing. It's actually thought of rather blasphemous. And I would actually agree with them because it's an incredibly Greek idea, and it is a Greek religious idea that shouldn't take any place in Christianity. So the very belief in an existence of God is an animal, really weird juxtaposition of God and existence. It's not allowed in any Eastern religion, I think, that sort of thing. It's a mixture of two religions. One is the religion of existence, and the other one is the religion of God. And I would say that in Christianity, as it is perceived in Greek terms, Platonic terms, or existence take a greater role. Therefore, the struggle between atheist and theist in Western world. In Eastern world, we don't have believers and non-believers. We have only people who sternly adhere to the traditions and the knowledge of God. There's no philosophical Platonic strand there. This is what Derrida is pointing to, is that the obsession of this idea of discarding metaphysics has done just the opposite, made metaphysics more important than everything else, even divine things. And this is something often called negative theology. And Derrida's task is to undermine metaphysical thinking, to disrupt its foundations, dislodge its certitude, turn aside its quests for an undivided point of origin, the logos. It's a major task, of course. Derrida argues himself that metaphysics pervades Western thought. In a sense, it has been Western thought. Is it escapable? Has anyone escaped it? Well, he do have some allies. Heidegger, we mentioned before, but also Nietzsche, I'd say. And who's helping with the overturning of reversing this order of presence and non-presence, of language, of writing, all these binary oppositions. When I get the time to return to it and say night for now.